Hey everybody, thank you for watching another interview on my channel. Today I have Donovan Corneetz, who is a voice actor and also an on-screen commercial actor. Is that right?
Correct.
Thank you so much for coming by to talk to me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, no problem. So what my channel is about is kind of how to start a business and following my journey to build a business. So that's why I'm really excited to have you and talk to you to kind of pick your brain and get an inside look at what you did to build your own business and to get to where you are. So before we talk about what you're doing right now, do you want to talk about how you first were introduced to voiceover and how you decided to pursue it as a profession?
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, by the way. So I was first introduced to voiceover sort of through college radio. I originally was in school to be a chiropractor, of all things. I was a bio major, and I had this voice since about, I don't know, 14 or 15. I went from people thinking I was my sister to people thinking I was my dad pretty much overnight.
Yeah.
And, I got the typical, oh, you should do radio. You should be in commercials and that whole thing. But I never really paid it any attention. And so by the time I got to college, I said, you know what? The radio station here, what the hell? I'll give it a try. And I ended up co-hosting a weekly show. And we used to do these mock commercials, these kind of spoof ads.
Right.
And so we just did it for fun, and it was like little comedy things. But I actually kind of caught the bug of being behind the microphone and playing these characters and these roles and putting together a whole piece. And that was pretty much how I got into it. And then as far as I learned about it, and then I had a professor while I was at school that did voiceover on the side.
Oh, cool.
Name is Vance Elderkin.
Okay.
And he, so I met him, and he kind of told me about what they were doing, and I said, hey, I want to do that too. Everybody says I have a great voice. I want to try it. And so that's pretty much how I got into it. And he was kind of the first person that really gave me advice on how to, get a demo made and practice and get a coach and get some training and acting and all that kind of stuff. So, and that was in 2004.
Okay, 2004. So after that, once you realized you really enjoyed it and you were good at it and you're finally using your voice for voiceover, how did you pursue it? You had a good mentor. So did you go into studios to talk to people, or what'd you do from there?
Well, the first part, because I was actually still in school when I first wanted to, so I couldn't afford to do anything.
Yeah.
So what I did was, the first thing I could do was practice. I ended up getting an internship with a little media group that was with the college. And so I would just do stuff for them, like in my dorm bathroom with a microphone, and kind of started that way. And once I graduated, I said, okay, I had switched my major to media communication because I caught the bug. I didn't want to be a chiropractor anymore.
Right.
And so what I did first was I started local. I went to local commercial production studios, any kind of place that they recorded VO or music or anything like that might hire someone like me that had a talent roster that I could join. And that was it. I had my little demos that I had to do myself because I studied audio production. And so I said, all right, I'll do these and put it out there. I started local. And in the meantime, I attended voiceover conferences so that I can learn more about the business. I bought, I don't know how many books from Amazon about voiceover, including the, the one by James Allberger and Penny Abshire, The Art of Voice Acting.
Yeah.
And books like that, kind of the standard ones. And I just kind of learned about it. And so once I had a demo made, I had a little bit of knowledge about the business, a little bit of training from workshops, from going to these conferences. And then I just started local. And I'm in the Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina. So I'm not in some huge market where there are studios, every 15 feet. So, it was still sort of on a level where I could actually talk to everyone in the industry almost and say, hey, I'm here, I'm willing to work, here's my demo. And, I started that way. And then once I started getting work, I started expanding my search to go from my city to my state and then neighboring states. And then little by little, just kind of growing it that way.
Yeah, I've heard that from people that the best idea is kind of to start local. And I think you probably had disadvantages in 2004 because there wasn't as much opportunity online, maybe. But now
Yeah,
it can be confusing for the opposite reason because you know that you can do a job anywhere in the world. So you might, at least for me, I noticed that I'm kind of ignoring my immediate area. Even though I'm right outside New York, I'm kind of ignoring the local area because the world is so big and you think you can just do a job anywhere. So I wonder if
right.
that's, I don't know if that helps or hurts, but it's just interesting to start local and kind of build out that way.
Yeah, I think the other reason that I wanted to start locally was because I was still new and honestly, I wasn't good enough for any big market stuff yet.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to, get my feet wet, practice, and actually feel what it was like to be in a session where I'm in a booth and somebody's looking at me and, staring at me saying, all right, we hired you, don't suck, So I wanted to cut my teeth on that rather than saying like, let me try out, not that I had access to it, but, saying, let me try out for this whatever, this national stuff or trying to get a big city agent when
Right.
clearly I wasn't ready for it. So it was huge because, to be honest, expectations and stuff are a little bit lower
Yeah.
when you start, especially in a smaller market. And, you're not in a pool of 8 million people in New York City.
Yeah.
And so, you have an opportunity to actually go to the studio. As long as you call first or something, it wouldn't be that big of a deal for you to come and take a tour and see and meet
Yeah.
the engineers, the producers. Whereas if you try to do that at some New York studio, first of all, they probably laugh you off the phone,
Right.
but you'd never have time to get in.
Yeah.
So I kind of benefited from being in a smaller market so that I could kind of go the grassroots way and actually meet the people, shake their hands and go to their, little mixers they would have,
Yeah.
and just meet everyone personally. And I feel like for me, even in this digital age, the biggest boost for me came when I started going out to where the producers were, the people that hire voiceover talent,
Yeah.
and actually meet them face to face. In this digital age, human connection means more than ever.
Yeah.
And when you can actually have a real personal relationship with someone and say, and you become Donovan, the guy who, lives in Durham, North Carolina, is married, has 2 young children, and, is into NC State athletics and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You don't become just an email and an MP3.
Yeah.
You
Just a
become
name
an actual
online.
person,
Right.
and it can be so impersonal, especially I remember when Voice 123 started and I was on it back then. And even then, you would get auditions and there'd be, 500-600 people. I
Yeah.
can't be personable with 600 other people.
Right.
But if I'm talking to a local studio face to face, their entire roster maybe had 25 people on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
they would remember me, So that's basically the route that I took. I wanted to involve human connection, human interaction, a handshake, a smile, actually going and seeing them, sending them a thank you gift or a thank you card
Right.
just for meeting with me, that kind of thing. And
So do you
that's
think?
kind of how I pushed my way into it, even if necessarily my demo wasn't good enough to be there. They gave me a shot because they
Because they
liked
knew you.
me.
Yeah. So do you think that's hard to do now? And I mean, it's obviously changed meeting people face to face, but has your approach to meeting people and building that personal connection changed from when you started to now?
The only thing that changed is I do it more.
Okay.
The fact that, like I was saying, because of how digital the world is now with, just emails and websites and pay to plays and all these things, I
Yeah.
think to me, if you can find a way to make a human connection, get a real conversation with someone that has nothing to do with voiceover,
Yeah.
that's going to mean even more when it comes time down the line, when they say, I met you at this conference or this mixer or this social event, and we really hit it off. And I think I finally have something on my desk that I think you'd be good for. Would you like to read for it?
Right.
Sure, absolutely. So once I started doing that and I started to see it work, please, I'll never change. Like that is,
Yeah.
I mean, now, yes, I have, agents in LA and New York, and I work with like in the UK and all across the United States.
Right.
To this day, my best work comes from people that I met. And
Yeah.
that eventually, after meeting them and seeing them and kind of chipping away, hey, I'm still here, sending them an email. Hey, how's your son doing?
Yeah.
Whatever. Then that led to the stuff where I didn't have to audition for it. It was
Right.
basically mine to not screw up. They said, hey, if you want it, read this, give me 3 takes, and if the client likes it, it's yours, instead of, your usual thing where you send an email underscore Donovan C,
Right.
that whole thing. So
More
yeah,
personal.
I don't think it's changed at all, except for I do it more. It means more now. I think the
Yeah.
fact that we're having this interview right now, I'll never forget Joe Murphy now. You know
Right.
what I mean? And hopefully you'll always have at least some sort of memory of Donovan, because we had a time, I had a one-on-one
Yeah.
conversation, and just take that and make it face to face. Now, yeah, maybe people's schedules are busy and stuff. You got to find the right time and place. You can't just, walk into someone's
Yeah.
office. But yeah, I think human connection will always be a more direct way to get whatever it is you're looking for,
Yeah.
whether it be voiceover or anything else.
Yeah, even just 5 minutes of talking to you, I know you much better, obviously, than seeing your voiceovers on Instagram. Like I
Right.
just see a little snippet of you, but now it's just, so I guess the more conversations you can have with people, the better. It's not a new concept, but it still
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. It almost feels like I tell people, they say like, hey, what was the biggest secret to,
Yeah,
going from only doing your local stuff to being on, TBS and whatever else?
yeah,
I went out and met people. I said, you know what? Me sitting at home in my studio, sending off MP3 files like nobody's business isn't working. I do okay with auditions, but I've never been an audition superstar. My
right.
booking rate is not that great. It never has been.
Mhm.
It's a little bit better now because I kind of have a little reputation with some clients,
Right.
but man, I used to go months without a booking from an audition. I said, this isn't working. I got to do something else.
Yeah,
And so I said, okay, let's go back to how I started it. Let's meet people. Let's go out. I want to shake the hand of the guy or the lady that's saying that guy, not that guy.
right.
Right. So if they know me already, they like me, it's easier for them to say, hey, you know what? I'll give Donovan a shot. He was a
Right.
nice guy. He was cool. Let's try it,
Yeah.
rather than me being MP3 file number 56 out of
Right.
120.
So,
So,
yeah, and
but
I've
yeah,
noticed
I
that.
think it's extremely important. Go ahead.
No, you can finish.
Oh no, I was going to say it's extremely important to tap into what is at our core, like how humans like to interact. I mean, people
Right.
can be shy and stuff, but I mean, meeting someone and shaking a hand and getting to know someone beyond what they do for a living, I think it means everything. And
Yeah.
it's meant the world to me in my career. And it took me from, where I was before to where I am now and where I will be in the future.
Yeah. And so how do you think, at least for me, I know that um, even, I can just use you as an example, just reaching out, hey, would you be available to do an interview? And you immediately respond, of course. So I think that I found the voiceover professionals seem to be so receptive to help anytime you ask for it. So how do you think like the producers and the people who are choosing the voice actor, is it as receptive as the voiceovers themselves?
Um, well, I can't speak for them amongst themselves, but as far as with them, with regard to VO talent,
Right.
the trick is the right time and right place.
Yeah.
So to give you an example and a little insider tip here. So
Okay.
I would say go to conferences where there are producers.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to a couple of them every year where the actual conference is for TV promo producers and
Oh,
affiliate network
yeah.
promo producers. Because when I started to get into voiceover and started to get some commercial jobs and radio and stuff, I said, you know what? I want to do TV promos. Like I
Yeah.
want promos. I want that to be like my bread and butter. Of
Yeah.
course,
You have
every
the
guy
voice
wants to do
for
a
it.
movie trailer. I knew it wasn't realistic, but so I said, you know what? Let's start with TV. So I found out about this conference where you can go and it's essentially for them, but there are a lot of VO talent there that are kind of selling their wares. And so I went where they are. And so during this conference, it's not really, it's not a conservative, tight knit everyone with a suit. I mean, it's a really lighthearted thing where people are kind of have their guard down,
Yeah.
and people are willing to talk to anyone because that's what they're there for. They're there to network and
Right.
learn. And so, yeah, I can go up to somebody and shake their hand. They see a name badge. They say, "Oh, Donovan, hey, where are you from?" And I tell them. They say, "What do you do?" I say, "Oh, I do voiceover." "Oh, really? Well, what have you done?" And then now now we've established a rapport,
Yeah.
and I can talk to them without it being, I'm trying to get them in the lobby of their office building, or,
Right.
trying to cold call them while they're in the middle of sweeps week or something like that.
Right. Right.
Not only do they not have the time, but I'd probably just piss them off because, like,
Yeah.
who is this guy annoying me when I'm trying to get work done? But if you get them in a relaxed setting,
Yeah.
there's no reason for them to not at least talk to you. They might say, you know what, I'm not interested in that. They kind of treat you like maybe a used car salesman or something.
Right.
And that's fine. You can't please everyone, but the
Uh-huh.
overwhelming majority are willing to at least open a conversation with you. And
Yeah.
then once you have that, the rest is up to you to just build that rapport. And you don't have to hammer into their head that you do voiceover or that you want them to hire you.
Yeah.
They
It's a
know
known.
that. They
Yeah.
know that they're a producer and you're a voiceover, and they know how that works. So you don't have to say, by the way, this is my voice and this is what. You don't have
Right.
to do that. Just be two professionals sharing an experience, and then eventually down the line, maybe you can work together. And
Yeah.
so that would be like the biggest tip I can give people as far as networking, is networking at the right time, right place. Marketing, like your local marketing groups, your AIGA, AMA, these different marketing groups that are all over the country. They
Yeah.
always have mixers, they have social events, they have luncheons. They aren't usually very expensive to join to be a member. And then once you're there, now you're in this relaxed setting with maybe, based on your market size, 30, 50, or 600 people or 2,000 people, whatever, that could all be potential clients.
Right.
And that's how you can kind of break through that wall of, well, how do I talk to a producer? And I don't want to get rejected by a producer. Well, A, you go to them when they're not in work mode. And two, you do it in a really relaxed, just starting a conversation way. Instead of selling yourself, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that, like I said, that's made the difference for me more than I can ever quantify, really.
Yeah, it seems, I guess once you say it, it seems so simple, but I know I haven't really thought about going to, there are conferences for voice over talent that I would like to go to, but I haven't thought about going to a conference specifically for a producer or so is it a different conference than the conferences that are for voice actors? How do you?
Yeah. So when you go to voiceover conferences, which are great, especially when you're starting out or you're trying to learn, or you're trying to get out of your little padded room and go meet other human adults, that's great too. Yeah, but you can interact, you can learn about all the different parts of the voiceover business, as far as pricing and demos and websites and how to put yourself out there. But chances are no one at a voiceover conference is going to hire you, because they're all trying to get work too. You know what I mean? So I've done voiceover conferences. I will continue to do them. But when my motive is to get work, there's no point in going to a voiceover conference, because no one there is going to hire me.
Yeah.
I want to go where there are potentially people there to hire you.
Right.
And so, it's two completely different dynamics, and your motivation for going to them are different. One is to learn and interact with people that do what you do, your peers. And the other one is, this is a marketing trip. I'm trying to drum up some business here.
Right.
Now, you don't have to go in there, like I said, with your sales cap on and hello, I'm a voiceover.
Right.
You just go and you meet people and you interact. And if it happens to work out, then it works out. But, going to a voiceover conference is like I said, it's just a completely different dynamic of what your goal is for going. You can learn. One is for learning and one is for getting work. And they both are very important, obviously. It's just, what is your motivation for that particular event?
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's not, it seems obvious, but it's I get, you just have to have a goal of what you want from that event, and it makes total sense once you say it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So do you do any cold calling, or did you ever do cold calling starting out, or did you skip right to these live events?
No, I had to start. I couldn't afford going to the events at first. So I started with cold calling. I started a spreadsheet, Microsoft Excel, and I just went on Google and I put in, commercial production studio, radio production studio, and then Raleigh or Durham or whatever, wherever your city you are. And then I just really just went down the line, like, all right, we're starting with the A's. And so I would go through and do, if there were more than one, all right, cool. There's no B's. All right, great. We'll go to the C's. And it really was just hours a day of just building up this database. And I mean, I did that for weeks until I had all of this area, all of this state, and then my neighboring states of like Virginia, South Carolina, Tennessee. And it took me weeks to do it, and it was tiresome, but I wanted to build up the database first. So I had a plan. All right, every day I'm going to contact at least 20 people, right? Or 10 or whatever it was. You have a goal. And so what I would do is all right, let's start. I would wait until about, 10 o'clock in the morning. So I wasn't getting people right away. I would usually start on like a Tuesday, because Monday everybody's trying to catch up from the weekend or whatever. So I would start at like Tuesday at 10 o'clock with the call in. And usually you get, a receptionist or someone, and you say, hey, I went to your website. That's the other key. If they have a website, look at it, read it, see how they would like to get submissions. Some people even, then they wanted you to send a CD. Other people wanted you to send an MP3. Other people wanted you to upload it to some other site or whatever. So you had to know that first to at least show, that you researched it. But I would usually talk to someone. I say, hey, my name is Donovan Corneetz. I do voiceover, and I would love to know who I could speak to about being on your talent roster. And, they would always say, well, here's their email address, or would you like me to see if they're available now? And if they were available now, of course, let me talk to them. They can hear my voice. And then, I would just say, hi, nice to meet you. This is my name. This is my website. You can listen to my demos, or I can email them to you. And I'd love to see if maybe there's an opportunity we can work together in the future. I mean, it was never this long, drawn out process. It was just introduce, say what you do, and how would you like to get, my demo, or how can we move forward if you're interested. And I did that day after day after day, and it started to pay off. People would say, you know what, I have something that I think you might be good for. Can you read this in the next, hour? Sure. So, now when I first started out, I still had a day job, so I couldn't do it right away. But I used to take 2-hour lunches, and there would be a lot of keys locked in the car. My wife's car won't start. There's a flat tire. Like, I made up every excuse in the book so that I could like run home or come in late,
get those calls,
an extended lunch, so that I could, push the limits. Hopefully I wouldn't get fired, but I would at least make these excuses for why I had to record or why I was out of the office. And then after I got tired of that, I started a third shift job. So I worked 11 at night to 7 in the morning. And then I did VO during the day and marketing and promoting. I slept maybe a total of 5 hours a day, 2.5 hours in the morning, 2.5 in the evening. And I did that for over a year, because once I kind of caught the bug with voiceover, and once I started to get a couple of checks here and there was no other option for me. I made it. I basically said, like, this is it. I found what it is I'm going to do for a living, and I will accept nothing else than this. And so if I had to work third shift, then I had to do that. It sucked. I hated it. I was tired every day, but it was one of those things. I wanted to be available at 10:30 in the morning. I wanted to be available at 1 p.m. I wanted to be available at 3 p.m. And so that's what I had to do. And I had to sacrifice sleep and social life for over a year, but it meant everything. Once I told people, oh, hey, just wanted to let you know I'm available from, 9 a.m. to whatever. Oh, really? Well, good. That's great. Hey, can you read for this? Can you try that? Let me send you this. Like, it opens a new door for you. When you're available to them when they need you. If you're working 9 to 5, so are they. You know what I mean? So that always was a barrier. And so that was the next step I did. And then after getting laid off from another job I had, that was kind of like my push, my kick in the pants to like, you know what? Let's do this. And so during that time when I was unemployed for 2 months, I told my wife, I said, give me 60 days. Like, I begged her, let me get 60 days to try to make this voiceover thing work. If it doesn't work, hell, I'll work at Walmart, whatever I have to do. But I need 60 days. And so she said, okay, fine. So for that time when I was unemployed, that was my job, was finding people, calling people, sending stuff out, doing auditions nonstop. And eventually I was making more than I was at my day job. And it just became something where I just kept that momentum rolling. Now, some months are here, some months are here, and it fluctuates. But by the time, that was in 2010 when I started doing voiceover full time, forced into it. But every year I've seen my income and my client list grow because I continue to work on it. I continue to call, I continue to go to the conferences and build relationships.
Yeah.
And I don't do this just for the sake of, I want your money. Like I really wanted to meet people. I genuinely wanted to find out how these people tick, like what makes them tick? How do they work? That could help me with auditions, right? I mean, if I can get in a producer's head, they're the people that are hiring. Well, what are they thinking when they're hiring?
What are they looking for?
Maybe that can give me a little edge. So anything like that would help me. So, that's basically how I went from doing voiceovers in a dorm bathroom to, kind of where I am today was basically just little by little. And, like I said, that was in 2004. It didn't happen overnight, and even during it full time, that was in 2010. So, 7 years ago. And even then I wasn't making a lot, but I was doing what I loved. So that was enough. And then I kept getting better. I kept working with 2 different coaches and practicing and acting. And then eventually the success came because I continued to put in the work and I got better.
And you had that extreme pressure for those 60 days probably.
Yeah. We had my oldest son was 6 months old at the time. So it was like, what are you going to do here, dude? You got a baby in the house. Yeah. So it was kind of desperation, but desperation is a great motivator.
Yeah. So you mentioned acting. Did you take acting classes or voiceover acting classes during that time?
I did it more specifically for voiceover. And then I got involved with some local theater stuff just so I can work out the, like improv and things of that nature so that I could kind of think on my feet and come up with things. And it helps a lot with cold reading because a lot of times, I don't know how much maybe you've experienced this, but it's very common for me to have a session booked at, say, 1 p.m.
Yeah.
And I get a script at 12:58.
So you don't have any time to,
Yeah, it's like, well, all right, what are you supposed to do here? And then I've had a session start. I'm dialed up with the studio, whether Source Connect, ISDN, whatever.
Right.
So I haven't got a script yet. Oh yeah, it's getting finalized. We'll shoot that to you as soon as we have it. Like, holy hell, I'm in the session. Like, I still don't have a script. So then they email it and they say, all right, you ready to go? Like, no, let me get 30 seconds, please. Let me at least look at it. And so in situations like that, having the experience and the practice of kind of being on the fly of getting context and pauses and tone switches while you're reading it in real time for the first time. I mean, it's huge. It saves them time, and time is money, right? So, and I'm not doing 55 takes as I try to read the script.
Yeah, you're not alone.
And that's a skill you have to practice. That's something you have to learn how to do, unless you're a natural, which I wasn't. But that's also been something that's been huge for me. A lot of times, legal doesn't pass the script along until 5 minutes before the session. Now what?
I guess I don't know what that is. Do you think it's just because they're constantly changing the script to match whatever message they're trying to get across till the last minute?
I think it's any number of factors. I think it's maybe somebody dropped the ball in the process and now it's pushing everything back, or maybe they had it written and legal took one look at it and said, no, we can't say that. Well, what can we say? Well, all right, well, try these 3 things. Which of these is good? You never know. And the other thing is, I probably not the only project that they're working on, right? They probably have 10 or 15 or 20 or who knows how many other projects. And this one fell in line. And when it came down the pipe, it was like, this ain't going to work. We can't say this. Yeah. So, you never know why. But it's a reality of the industry. It happens a lot where you get a script last minute, but they still want you to do it as though you have it memorized. And so, one of the biggest keys in voiceover, especially when people want conversational, real person. One of the biggest things is to not sound like you're reading it. Well, how the hell do you do that when I'm reading it for the first time? I have not practiced the script.
It sounds
so you have to be able to fake it.
Yeah.
You have to practice being able to fake it and sounding real and genuine
Right.
for the very first time, or at least skimming through it really fast to say, okay, break here, there's a pause here. Okay, they said this word 3 times, so I guess that's important. So I'll make sure I look at those words. You know what I mean? Like you try to find hints and clues really quickly, and then the rest of it, you kind of fly by the seat of your pants sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, other times, yeah, you have the script for a day or 2 days or an hour or whatever, and you have time to read it. But, you know, that doesn't always help either. Sometimes I have sessions backed up, and even though they sent it 2 hours ago, I haven't had a chance to look at it until that time. So then it's the same issue, except now it's my fault, you know, so I really can't screw it up.
But I
So
guess
it's a lot that goes into it that people don't
Yeah.
realize, I think, the pressure that you can be under when,
Mhm.
you know, some multi-100,000 or million campaign is depending on you. Oh yeah, and we don't have a script yet. You know,
Right.
it's like,
Great.
kind of blows your mind, but
Yeah.
it happens.
So I guess it can be just as, maybe not just as difficult, but it can also be hard if you have the script way in advance and you over prepare and then you get it locked in to say it a certain way. That can be difficult too, probably.
Right, exactly. You don't want to get in your own head, and the process, the performance suffers because you've been locked in. No, I'm going to say it this way, and
Yeah.
I'm going to go up on this word, and then they say, no, what are you doing? Don't go up on that word. You're
Right.
like,
Right.
crap! Now they've messed up my whole
And
rhythm,
that's
my
how you
whole
practiced.
my whole idea I had in my head. So yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things, and you have to be able to be directable. That's a
Yeah.
huge thing for what we do. It's, you need to be clay, you
Mhm.
know, not concrete. So
Right.
you need to be able to, if they say, you know what, you sound a little too happy, I need you to tone it down, but don't lose the energy, but sound serious. You're like, what? Don't go up in tone, but go faster. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
the
you know,
direction
so
might not
all
make
of these
sense,
different
right?
things, you have to be able to be molded and formed to, you know, the client's always right, you know, so
Right.
you got to put in whatever little bits they want you to get
Yeah.
the finished product. Because, you know, for the most part, we should, as VO talent, like, hey, like, we'll say whatever you want us to say, like, you know, for the most part, like,
Right.
hey, just give us a shot here. I'm glad I booked it. I'll
Right.
say whatever you want, you know, within reason. So you have to be willing to, like I said, be clay instead of concrete.
Right.
Sometimes you can get stuck in your own head and kind of the diva thing, like, well, no, this is how I do it, and this is how I
Sounds
did it for
better this way.
McDonald's or for Walmart or for Nike. So
Right.
I think this works. Thank you very much. You know,
Right.
now
It
you don't
doesn't
want
help.
that at all. If
Yeah.
you want me to make everything sound like a question, fine, I'll make it sound like a question. Do you want me to say it like this? Fine, whatever you want, as long
Right.
as the check clears.
So do you think, I know I saw a commercial, I think it was it Volkswagen that you did recently? An on
Oh, for
camera?
on camera.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
noticed,
yeah.
so is it harder to be directed when you're doing an on camera commercial or a voiceover commercial? I'm just curious about that.
Um, I think they're both difficult in their own way, only
Right.
because obviously with on camera, there's a lot more factors that come into play, right?
Yeah.
Facial expression, where
Yeah.
your hands are, the way you open, like for that commercial, is like the timing of you opening the door when you're talking so that you don't open it and the sound of the door is over your voice.
Right.
How you stand. No, you can't stand there because the sun is here. Okay. Now
Mhm.
when you, especially if you're walking, you know, you have to walk and make sure you stop exactly when you say this word.
Right.
So there's a lot more to it, but sometimes that can be a benefit because in voiceover, you don't have the benefit of a smile as
Right.
far as, like, you know, to by itself, you
Mhm.
have no facial expression.
Yeah.
You don't know what I'm doing with my hands or with my feet, or, you know, hell, you don't know if I'm standing in my underwear. You have no
Right.
idea. So sometimes voiceover can be more difficult because they want the same emotion, the same feeling, the same
Mhm.
everything, but all I have is my voice.
Yeah.
Whereas on camera, I can relay sarcasm or anger
With your
or
face.
whatever, confusion, without saying a word.
Yeah.
I can't do that in voiceover. So
Yeah.
they each have their own ways. You know, there's more things they can direct you on, but
Mhm.
those are easy changes, or not easy, but, you know, easier changes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put my hand here instead of here.
Right.
No biggie.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if someone is in a voiceover session, and like I said, they say, you know, I love what you're doing. We need you to sound concerned and saddened, but hopeful, but really fast. We got to fit this in 28 seconds.
Right.
But don't sound too energetic because you're still sad because your mom died and it's
Right.
a funeral spot. You know, so it's like, all right,
Yeah,
how
have
do
to
I
go all with
sound,
your
you
voice.
know,
Yeah.
enthusiastic because I want people to have a call to action and buy the product or service, but I
Right.
also have to be this sad guy whose mom died. It's, you know,
Right.
so sometimes there's less that they can tell you, but it's harder to get there when it's only a voice. Whereas, like I said, there's more things on camera, but it's easier to kind of tweak those, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you have to do all the acting with just the way you sound. It's really tough.
Yeah.
But I took an acting class, and I found it really helped, at least just to open me up, because if I'm standing in a room by myself recording voiceover, I didn't know if acting, like stage acting class would help, but I found it really helped kind of now I tend to act a little more when I'm recording with my microphone, and it kind of helps my voice sound
absolutely
the way they want. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if someone saw me in a booth during one of my higher energy or really intense spots, I mean, I'm all over the place. I've been sweating. I've had to say, hold on, let me grab some water. I take my shirt off because I'm burning up hot, because I've been sweating because I'm in there so animated.
Right.
With hands and doing all this stuff, but I gotta still stay on mic, right? So you can't just, you can't go all over the place. But I think it definitely helps when you've had to use that for on camera or stage, because whatever can help you get to the emotion or the character or the feeling or whatever you're trying to come through on with just your voice, it helps if using your hands helps you get there. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't fit for the spot, because they'll never see it. Yeah, so I think that definitely is a plus to have that training and that practice, because it'll help you get there when maybe just in your head isn't enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So now, I think one of the first things I saw of yours on Instagram was probably for either the LAClippers or LAKings, and it sounded like a voice that I've heard a million times doing promo for sports. I was like, oh, have I heard this guy before? So how did you?
Yeah.
Was your goal to do promos? Because you seem to be really good at promos. I don't know if that's like your chosen specialty or they just happen.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I started going to these promo conferences, there was a specific goal. I want to do TV promos.
Yeah.
As far as sports, that came about at one of these conferences. One of the people in attendance that I met was like the creative director at Fox Sports West. She's not there, but at the time, she was running the promo department, and so we kind of talked, and she said, I really love your voice just from talking to you. We exchanged business cards, and about maybe a week or so later, I got a phone call, and they're saying, we're thinking about changing our voice. We're looking to rebrand, and I thought about you from when I met you. So, excuse me, if you wouldn't mind, they gave me, because on Fox Sports West, they do the Angels for baseball, they do the Kings and Ducks for hockey, they do the Clippers for basketball, and they also do some college stuff as well for Pac-12. So they gave me like 6 different spots, one baseball, one football, one basketball, and so on. And so they just basically, here, if you can do this and not suck, it's your job. Basically, is what they didn't say it like that, but that's basically what it was.
Because you're testing.
So I did the audition. I sent it in with a couple of takes of each of their promo spots they sent, and I just relied on. I mean, I'm a sports fan. I watch a lot of sports. I watch a lot of ESPN and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of knew how sports promos sound, but I wanted to insert my own kind of flavor to it.
Yeah.
And what I think helped me out was because for the Clippers and for basketball, they wanted to skew a little bit more urban and more youthful.
Yeah.
So I could say, CP3 and the Clip Show are taking on the whatever, right? So like there's a bit more attitude, a little bit more soul to it. Whereas for the Kings, it was, the Kings take on the whatever. So it's like this higher pitched, kind of more in your face, rock and roll type voice. All right, the Kings. And the Ducks was a bit more laid back version of that. And so the fact that I could give them I could basically tap into different demographics.
Yeah, for each sport.
Just me. They didn't have to hire, a talent for the Clipper spots or a talent for the Angel spots or whatever. And she was like, all right, let's do it. Let's work this out with your agent. And so, the contract and all that kind of stuff. So I've been the voice of Fox Sports West now for over 3 years.
Oh, cool.
And yes, so that's how I got into doing LA sports stuff, even though I live in North Carolina.
Right.
It was, like I said at the beginning, meeting someone, shaking a hand, and that was it. There was no audition for it. There was no like, voice 1, 2, 3 for it. There was no, it wasn't even through an agent. I got it myself, and then I passed it to my agent so they could, go over contracting and payment and all that kind of stuff, because I had no idea about that stuff. And so so that's basically how it started. And then from that experience and having that under my belt, I started being able to work with other sports networks. And since then I've worked with the NFL on ESPN. I did Monday Night Football for a season. This past season I was the voice of Sunday NFL Countdown for ESPN. All kinds of different things that I've done sports wise because of what I've been able to do with Fox Sports West, which again started with a handshake, man. Right. So that's like it. I know everybody has their own path, and everyone has things that work particularly well for them. Mm-hmm. But for me, man, it was meeting people, shaking hands, and it's worked again and again and again. I started working with HGTV and DIY Network because I met the VP of production or promo for promotions. Yeah. Same conference, having a drink at the bar, just like chatting about music and kids and stuff.
Being normal. Yeah.
Yeah, just a normal conversation. I didn't even know who she was. Yeah. And turns out she's like, oh yeah, I'm with Scripps Networks. And next thing you know, they did a rebrand, and I was the voice of the Love Home campaign on HGTV. So you have, here I am doing like these hardcore sports things, and then on the other side, it's Love Home, HGTV, Love Home. So it was like, I was blown away by the success I had from meeting people and shaking hands. And that's why I will always say, you got to meet the people that are doing the hiring, the people that are making the decisions. That will always be in your favor. You know what I mean? As long as you do it the right way. If you're not a jerk about it or pushy and you have to be able to back it up, Right. You have to be able to back it up. If you go out there and you hand your cards out and I can do this and that, and then you get the shot where they say, hey, if you get this right, tomorrow you're going to be the voice of our rebrand, and you get all nervous or you screw it up or you can't deliver. Now you just ruin that relationship. Yeah. And they all talk. So you may have ruined that relationship with anybody else. Hey guys, don't work with this Donovan guy. He couldn't deliver. So, that's just another part of it. Yeah, you got to go out there. You got to market yourself, cold call, meet people, network. But damn it, you better be able to deliver when you get the opportunity. Yeah. Right. So that's just something to keep in the back of everyone's mind. I mean, usually as actors and freelancers and stuff, all we want is that shot, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, just give me a chance. Right. I can prove to you I can do it. So if you say that, you better be able to do it.
Yeah. And I think it seems like your approach in 2004, starting local where you're living, and it seems like you got a lot of practice throughout the years, so that when that opportunity finally came, you'd been doing it for years. So you were totally ready. It wasn't like 3 months after you start, you get this chance, because it might have been different if that had been the case.
Yeah, I tried. Yeah, it really worked out for me that when I got the bigger shots, the bigger chances, I was somewhat prepared for it. Of course, I was still nervous the first time I did a national campaign, or the first time I did the first promos I ever did were for TBS. Okay. For they do the 24 hours of A Christmas Story. Oh, okay. This was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. That was my first ever promo. And I was nervous as hell. Like, I was, man, I'm going to be on TBS. Like, this is national, baby. Like, man, I wanted to do promos, and here it is. And so, I'm kind of sweating a little bit during the session, but, I faked it. Like I've been doing this for years. Right. And, but no, once I did that, like I said, that led to more things with TBS. And then, I don't know, it just kind of all helped. Stuff that I did for TBS helped stuff that I did for HGTV. And then stuff that I've done for HGTV helped me out with some affiliate work that I've done. So it's like the experience you get with one, you try to hold on to that so that you have like another little voice in your like vocal Rolodex to date myself, but like something you can pull from and say, okay, I kind of had this tone for this. I think that would work with a little tweak for this. So I think all of that lends itself to helping you be to broaden what you're capable of doing. And I think, I guess I can say my specialty is promos,
Yeah.
but I do medical narrations. I do corporate training stuff. I do, regular commercial stuff. I was the voice of Boost Mobile for about a year and a half, 2 years.
Oh, cool.
They just recently switched, so I'm no longer sad face. But, that was like being a brand voice. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But that's completely different from being a sports person or, and then I did Klondike ads for the last couple of years where I had like this really deep Barry White kind of delivery where it made it look like a cheesy 70s porno or something with candy bars and Klondike bars coming together. And so I'm the voice at the end with all the innuendo. So, I mean, something like that is completely different from HGTV, right? So while I can say I specialize maybe in promo and high, that kind of high energy stuff, there's no reason why anybody should limit themselves to one particular genre or style of voiceover, because there's so many endless things out there. I mean, I've done video games. I had a role in 400 Days for a Walking Dead game.
Oh, cool.
Which is really cool. But in the same, so that was something else. The only thing that I have not tried and I have no interest in trying, and there's no disrespect to people who do, it's just not for me, it's audiobooks. I have I just don't have the stamina for it.
Yeah, that's
like
tough,
I can't, 300, 400, 500 pages and takes you 3 weeks and all this kind of stuff. I just don't have the patience for it. But I know people that's like the main thing they do, and they make a really good living on it. Right. So more power to them. But that's just, I like to survive on my short bursts of commercials and the occasional narration and e-learning. But there's no reason to limit yourself. But if you find something you're good at and it seems to resonate, you better believe I promote a lot of stuff to get more sports work, because I know that I do that really well.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I'm not going to try out for something that has absolutely nothing to do with sports.
Yeah, I guess it's as important almost to know what you don't want to do with audiobooks than it is to know what you want to do and specialize in.
Yeah, I'll try pretty much anything except, I mean, I've had offers of audiobooks and I just kind of decline, say, thank you, but no thanks. But here I can refer you to some guys that I think might be really good for you. And, I don't try to take work out of anybody else's pocket and I don't try, like you said at the beginning. I mean, I think overall VO people is a great community. We're really helpful. If something doesn't work for me, I can pass it off to you and whatever. There's enough work out here for everybody that's that can handle it. But you kind of have to know. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they start out is they try to be everything to everybody, and now me included. My very first demo was me doing like a monster truck type ad. I had like a beer ad. I was doing a Spanish accent, which I'm not Spanish. I was doing a Jamaican accent. I was doing like a New Yorker accent, all in one demo. Like, it's ridiculous. I fit it into 1 minute and 20 seconds or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And I don't know why anybody hired me for anything back then. But I had the thought of like, I can do anything. I can be all things. I had one demo that showed my great range, never thinking that if they want a Spanish accent, they'll probably just get a Spanish guy.
Right.
They're not going to hire you. Right. But so I think that's one of the things, is to hone in on what they call like your money voice, right? Your bread and butter voice, the thing that you're most comfortable with, that you feel you can bring the most value or best performance to a project, and then start from there and branch out from there, instead of saying, I'm here,
right,
I'm doing this, and I'm here. Start here, get really, 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 really good at this,
right,
and then do this with it. Instead of trying to just throw darts at a board of voiceovers and try to be everything to all people.
Yeah,
I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, that seems to be the temptation, at least for me. When you start, you want to, I don't want to limit my opportunities, so I'm going to go after everything. But then it's like you don't get anything because you're chasing everything.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to try to be all things to all people. Get really good at what you can, and then grow little by little from there. And I think that's a huge lesson to learn, and it's a bit of a humbling thing when you have to realize, like, damn, I guess I can't do everything. Sometimes you have to say no to an audition. Like, no, that's not right for me.
Right. And so how do you think, when you do promos, you said you do for HGTV and different sports networks, so do they tell you 'cause I don't know. I think when people think promo voice, they get this stereotypical in your face promo voice. But what you're
Right.
saying is making me realize that within promo, there are a lot of subcategories. And so do you kind of get
Oh
in your
yeah.
own head?
Yeah, there's everything.
Yeah. So do you figure that out on your own? Obviously you have a director, but you kind of have to, I guess, HGTV is going to be a different audience than ESPN. So
Exactly.
how do you come up with
Yeah,
that?
you have to take into account who your audience is, right? Who are
Yeah.
you speaking to? Because that at the end of the day, that's what this is all about, is connecting with a listener, a watcher, whoever, and getting them to do something, whether it's buy a product or change or turn to this TV show Sunday night at 8 on whatever.
Right.
So whatever the goal is, realize who it is that you're talking to. If I'm trying to get people to watch what I used to be the voice of Fixer Upper for
Okay.
promos for Fixer Upper on HGTV,
Yeah.
there's no reason for me to be like, watch Fixer Upper on HGTV, because no one that I'm talking to
It's
is going
overwhelming.
to
Yeah.
react to that. Yeah, it's like, what the hell? For the most part, you're dealing with, maybe your middle demographic of women or whatever is your usual, audience for that. Your typical
Right.
audience for a home improvement show during the daytime on HGTV. It's probably going to
Right.
be middle-aged woman, somewhere in there, right?
Right.
Homeowner, mom, that whole thing. There's no
Mhm.
reason to yell at her about it, but instead, watch an all-new Fixer Upper
Yeah.
tonight at 7 on HGTV. So it's a nice delivery. Yes, they're going to be hitting stuff with sledgehammers during the show and building and hammering nails and stuff, but to get you to watch it, there's no reason to slap you in the face with
Yeah.
the copy. And then for sports, you're trying to get somebody excited to watch this game and maybe not that game that's on the other network.
Mhm.
So how are you going to do that? Let's get them excited. Let's go. You want to sound like that coach that's getting their team ready to go out on the field and to the field of battle and take on the giant, right? When I did Cleveland Hustles for CNBC, which was LeBron James kind of a reality business show,
Yeah.
it was a completely different animal. For Cleveland Hustles, they wanted the voice to be like the almost the lowest part of the promo, right?
Yeah.
So it was like watching all new Cleveland Hustles on CNBC.
Mhm.
So I mean, that was it. Like, it was this really straight, deep
Yeah.
voice, almost no emotion. Let the pictures and the experiences of these people that are entrepreneurs and trying to live their dream. Even though I'm introducing LeBron James, he doesn't have on a jersey in this. He has on a suit. So why would I yell like he's on the basketball? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
paying attention to, if you get a like a scratch track, a demo, an example of the finished spot, or the example of the video, but without your voice. Usually they have some producer or whoever
Yeah.
doing a scratch voice on it, or a temporary voice. So they kind of give you an idea of the timing or whatnot. And you can use that to your advantage to say, okay, but sometimes you don't get that for an audition. You're not going to get that. So all you have to do for an audition to help you get at least in the right zone, obviously there's no guarantees, right? But
Yeah.
at least to get you in the best possible position to win the gig, look at the copy, look at who am I talking to? Who is the network trying to get to take action?
Right.
Is it going to be teenage boys? Is it middle-aged women? Is it, is it on the African-American community? Is it mostly not African? Like all these different factors. And then you look at the copy, you let the script tell the story, and you're just like the avenue for it, the conduit for it. So when you have certain lines, if it's a lot of exclamation points and all caps, and you realize you're using words like fight and, battle and stuff like that, then you're probably going to be louder with that, or more intense in your face. But if it's, more lighthearted stuff, then there's no reason to yell. So it's like taking the copy, the script, the whole idea, and what network it is. Nobody's screaming on HGTV. You know what I mean? Like you'll get that on some stations, but you're definitely not going to get that. Or on CNBC, nobody's yelling on a news channel.
Right.
So, it's just know the environment you're working in and who you're talking to. And then that can help you mentally put yourself in the box that would be the most appropriate. And then if you want to do a second take or whatever, where you kind of go a little outside of the box, then fine. Because you never know. That might be like, wow, we weren't expecting that. That'll be great when they have 85 guys that all sound exactly the same, and then you come in with a completely different idea that could help you get the gig.
Right.
So, it's one of those things where you just got to put yourself in the best possible position to book the job, because there's no guarantees at all. You can go through all the training and have the most amazing demo that you spent $2,000 getting done and never book a job. And you got somebody that comes off the street, I mean, a homeless guy on the street from a few years ago.
Yeah.
Now he's still the voice of craft. So it's now granted that was, that's an extreme example, but it just goes to show that you can be in all these different positions and it doesn't mean anything if they don't hire you. So all you have to do is be good enough, know what you're doing when you're doing a commercial for, depends. Then if you're doing a commercial for M&Ms or if you're doing a commercial for Nike, the delivery is not going to be the same. So just know what your environment is that you're speaking in and who you're speaking to, and you'll already have an advantage over probably 75% of the other people that are auditioning that just want to do it in their voice or their way, or everyone wants to show how deep their voice can get and all this kind of stuff, when that might not be appropriate. Now you sound like an amateur. So I think all of that lends itself to at least putting yourself in the best position to get the job.
Yeah. I think it can be tough even when you're auditioning you kind of get, at least I get stuck in the same type of voice, and I might do 5 auditions in a row. And then I realize, I did all of those auditions in the same voice without really thinking about who I'm talking to. And it's good to remind yourself of who your audience is.
Yeah, I would say before every audition, take a few seconds, even if it's like 10, 15 seconds, and just really look at the script and ask yourself, who is this for, and who am I talking to?
Yeah.
And so that way you don't get stuck in sounding the same, especially, you're in your booth or in front of your microphone by yourself for hours every day, talking to yourself, essentially. Yeah, you can get stuck in your own pattern, your own head, and everything starts to sound, everything sounds great. You're like, wow, man, I'm killing all of these. But then you go back and listen later, like, damn, that really sucked. Or, man, every line ended the same way, or every commercial sounded exactly the same. I mean, I even said my name for the at the beginning of the audition. I said that the same. I did the same slate. Hey, maybe switch up the slate every now and then. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think it's important to just, like you said, remind yourself that every spot is different. Every project is different. Every producer, everything is different. So at least give it a minute, to give it its due diligence to say, all right, what are we doing here? Who am I talking to? What's the product?
Yeah.
What is it going to be? Is it going to be only on YouTube, or is this going to be on TV, or is this only going to be internal? If it's internal, then you're talking to experts that already know this stuff. Right. So you have to sound like you know what you're talking about. So you're not going to sound like the goofball dad or whatever that you were for the Swiffer ad. So it's like, know where you are in the realm and then focus in on that. And then I think that will help you differentiate your auditions so that each one sounds appropriate for the product or service or whatever.
Well, Donovan, thank you so much. This has been, I think, when I think about it, the advice that you gave seems like it should be obvious, like start out local, meet people and have real relationships that you're not necessarily trying to give a hard sell. You're just meeting people because you want to. And those have led to your biggest breaks, it seems like, and just know your audience. So those are, I think, some awesome advice. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's it does seem after the fact to say, wow, that's really simple. But it took me time to really like do a self-assessment and say, all right, what you're doing isn't working. What are you going to change? And sometimes it's hard. We get in our egos and we like to think we're perfect. And so you kind of have to step back and say, well, if you're not booking much, obviously you're not perfect. So what are you going to change? And so that was the change I made. And it's worked out for me tremendously. And I can't guarantee it'll work for anybody else like yourself or anyone else that watches this, but it gives you a pretty good chance, a pretty good shot over the people that will never, ever think to do things that seem so simple later. You know?
And if you keep doing it, as you seem to have done for 6 years until you went full time, I guess from 2004 to 2010, you kept doing the right things over and over until eventually it clicked.
Then my good started to outweigh the bad. And I still make mistakes, of course, and there's a ton of stuff that I don't book, but the things that I do book more than make up for it. So, you know, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I can't imagine doing anything else than this. And, you know, I like to share my experiences, and maybe it'll help somebody skip out on a year or two of screwing up or doing things wrong, or not necessarily wrong, but doing something that doesn't work and you get stuck.
Right.
You say, well, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So maybe I can help, you know, somebody say, oh, you know, I never thought of that. Just like people did with me when I was starting, and still do today. I still learn every day. Never stop learning. Never think you're so good that you don't have to train anymore, or practice anymore, or try new things. Because if not, there'll be somebody else starting out and will take every job that I used to get. So, yeah, it's important to always keep an open mind. So that's great. I'm glad that at least a couple of things that can help you and could help anyone else.
Yeah, it's great advice. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for the invitation. I enjoyed it.
Thanks.